Hello friendos and welcome to a guide on artisan weapons. Artian. These weapons are the current endgame of Wilds and have players crying and laughing over their garbage rolled stats or god tier rolls. These can be used as an alternative to other rarity 8 crafted weapons, either competing with them or outclassing them depending on your weapon type or how good your luck is. And if it's like mine, well, we're definitely crying together. Anyway, Artian weapons are unlocked after completing the quest Wyvern Sparks and Rose Fawn, which is the main story quest. In this quest, you'll be facing off against your first tempered monster, which will reward you with a damaged weapon shard, introducing you to the system. To get more weapon shards, you'll have to defeat more tempered monsters found in the world, stronger variants to normal monsters that deal a lot more damage, but in this video, I'm going to be explaining the Artian weapon system in detail. So let's just begin, shall we? To get started, we need to talk to Gemma and select the Forge Artian weapons. Select the weapon type we want to make, and then we'll be presented by a menu that shows a bunch of stuff, and that doesn't explain much. Alright, well, every weapon here requires 3 parts of the same rarity to make. The type of parts vary from weapon to weapon, with there being 4 different parts in total: blade, tube, disc, and device. For example, to make a greatsword, we'll need 2 blades and 1 tube. So we'll select 2 blades and 1 tube, and then we're good to craft our brand new weapon. But there's a few other things to note here, those being the element type and infusion bonus. To get an element on our weapon, we'll need to use at least 2 parts of the same element. For the min-maxers out there who want to be optimal, going for 3 parts of the same element will further increase the elemental damage or status build-up. If you want a raw weapon with no element, then simply use 3 parts all having a different element. The infusions are a bit more simple. Without coefficients, which I highly recommend turning off by the way, because it makes comparing and mathing a lot easier with this option off. Anyway, without coefficients, each part with an attack infusion will increase your weapon attack by 5, while affinity infusions will increase your affinity by 5% for each part. For the non-initiated, affinity is just critical hit chance, so 5% affinity equals 5% critical hit chance. There you go, saved you a Google. So you have the choice between 15 extra attack or 15 extra affinity, or an uneven mix of the two if you're feeling freaky. Personally, I like to go for 3 attack infusions and get my affinity increases through my armor skills instead, and besides, you're probably going to end up with some extra affinity on your weapon anyway. But this is my personal preference, and I'm sure you can think for yourself what's best for you, and you know what they say. A good teacher doesn't give all the answers away, or something like that. Anyway, you might be asking, how do I get these Artian parts? And to that I answer, tempered monsters. These can be found in the world indicated by their purple icon on the map, and your scout flyers will glow blue. Defeating 5-star tempered monsters will reward you with rarity 5 damaged weapon shards that are appraised into rarity 6 parts. Defeating a 6-star tempered monster will reward rarity 6 rusted weapon shards that are appraised into rarity 7 parts, and defeating 7 or 8-starred tempered monsters will reward you rarity 7 ancient weapon shards that appraise into rarity 8 weapon parts. Why are the weapon shards a rarity below the parts they appraise into, you may ask? I have no idea, but I thought it would be fun to add. Oh, and don't worry, the appraisals happen the moment you acquire the parts, which makes it even more confusing why they're a rarity down, but I just wanted to let you know you don't have to do anything to appraise parts, it happens automatically. Anyway, we'll focus on getting those rarity 8 parts, and for that we'll have to hunt tempered apex monsters. This includes Raidal, Uvduna, New Udja, Jindahad, Arkveld, and Gor Magalia, which we can only do once we reach Hunter rank 41 and completed the high rank story. Spawning these is rather simple, with the exception of Arkveld and Gor Magalia. All you need to do is rest and set the weather to inclemency, which you can do with either your portable barbecue grill or in the tent. This will force apexes onto the map who may or may not be tempered. If they aren't, you can just rest again. But do note that resting won't only reset the current map you're in, but the whole of the world map, so it's worth having a quick check of the other zones before you decide to rest. But if they are tempered, on the other hand, that's great. You now have the option to save them as an investigation for some points and make them a quest. If you hunt them and forget to save as an investigation, don't worry, you can talk to Alma or access your quest list from your tent and select Field Survey History. This stores all of your past open world hunts as investigations that you you can unlock with points. But that isn't the best way. That would be double investigations, or as this game refers to them as great hunts. Investigations where you'll have to hunt 2 targets rather than just 1, but they offer a ton of more rewards. These can be unlocked after reaching HR 30 and completing the quest A Break in the Clouds, which unlocks Chapter 6, and you'll be able to accept a new side quest in each region, which will task you with a double hunt upon completion, which will unlock the Great Hunt for that region. So now we know how to unlock double investigations, let's try to get one to pop up, and it's really easy. We'll just follow the same logic we used to spawn the apexes and wait until a good investigation comes up with a tempered apex and another monster. In my experience, the additional monster is really a non-issue. For example, I have this tempered Arc-Veiled and Lalabarina. The Lalabarina will not take a moment to hunt, and we can either hunt it after or before the Arc-Veiled without any real impact on the overall hunt. Now, there isn't some crazy way to do this like a lot of people would have you believe. All you do is rest until something good pops up, and if it does, great, we can make it a quest and save it as a repeatable investigation to do later. Alternatively, or something to do in between checking your maps, is check your lobby members' quests and SOSs. They could have some really good double investigations, so it's well worth checking this every now and then too. And most people are more than happy to get some help and share their investigations. Monster Hunter is a cooperative game after all. But anyway, that isn't the only way to get Artian parts. There is also another option, that is melding. I say option, but really this is just something you'll be able to do along with your investigations to increase your overall income of Artian parts. To meld, we'll head to Suja village and speak to Vio and select meld relics, and then select ancient weapon shard fragments that cost 80 points. If you're wondering about these other shard options, you unlock these at HR 100 that cost 40 more points, but are great if you're wanting to craft a particular weapon. Anyway, once selected, we'll be presented a list of materials. God, why did I write it that way? We can use these materials to generate points. These materials include tickets, Bloodstones, and Artian parts. Using excess Artian parts for the Ancient Shard Fragment is just not worth it in my opinion. These will generate 16 points each, which means to get 1 fragment, you'll have to use 5 Artian parts for a 1 in 4 chance to get the part you're actually after. The better thing to do with these is hold on to them until you reach HR 100 so you can make specific Artian parts, or craft them into an Artian weapon and dismantle them for extra ores. We'll talk about ores later. Or you could just hold on to them and use them for other weapon types you'd like to try out at some point. Just throwing you some ideas. But on the other hand, Bloodstones' only purpose are to be used in the melding pot to generate points for Artian parts, so you can never go wrong using these. To get Bloodstones, you'll need to break tempered wounds on tempered monsters, which unlike normal monsters, they are already there and decided before you even engage the monster, and you can identify them by their big, large blue scars. Honestly, they're kind of hard to miss. Anyway, you hit these spots repeatedly until they become a blue glowy wound. Then you break that wound. Then you'll be rewarded with a Bloodstone. Tempered apexes that include Gormagalia and Arc-Veiled. Can we just count Gormagalia and Arc-Veiled as the apexes as well, please, for the love of God? Anyway, these will drop large Bloodstones and Bloodstone chunks, which give a ton of points. Any monster below those monsters will drop the lower tiered Bloodstones. Anyway, moving on to the tickets now, which there are 2 types of 2. 2 types with 2 different variants. Whatever. The 2 types are silver, generating 300 points, and gold, generating 1,200 points. These come in 2 different variants, melding tickets and relic tickets. Melding tickets are used on Wyverian melding and decoration melding, while relic tickets are used on, you guessed it, relic melding. Silver tickets are rewarded from weekly limited bounties that you can view and claim from any support desk Palico by talking to them, selecting I'd like to request support, and selecting the View Complete Limited Bounties. From here, you'll see what you need to do to complete the bounties, which are usually progressed passively, but you may have to go out of your way to complete them every now and then. As for gold tickets, these can be acquired through trading, assuming you've completed high rank. Because why else would you be watching a video about Artian weapons, an endgame mechanic, if you haven't? But anyway, assuming you have, Nata will be at every base camp and will allow you to view every trading NPC directly through him. The important ones are Gordy Gog, Rove, and Sekka. If you're not quite done yet, and you still want this information, then I guess I'll go through the effort of telling you where these NPCs are. So, Gordygog can be found within the Woodward hideout in the Scarlet Forest, and he will occasionally trade 1 gold melding or relic ticket for 30 ancient Wyverian coins. Fortunately, Rove in Ice Shard Cliffs is willing to part with some ancient Wyvern coins in exchange for some goblet weed or chalice weed, both of which can be found in Scarlet Forest at these 2 locations I'm showing you now in the video. Chalice weed comes from the same spots but is rarer, so if you're like me, you might not get any. Also, it's worth slotting into your armor the Geology gem, as these will increase the amount you gather, that or just make the talisman. Anyway, let's go on to our last trader, which is Sekka, who can be found in Suja village, and they will occasionally trade 1 gold melding or relic ticket for 1 nightflower pollen, which is actually quite easy to get. So let me quickly take you through this. The one I know of that can be found is in Windward Plains at night on a full moon. To get to a full moon, you'll have to wait until a full moon. So simply have a camp nearby, rest until nighttime, go to this spot and wait for the moon to come up. Take note of the moon phases, and you know what, I'll just let the footage play out and list the phases for you. Alright, now with only 1 phase left until full moon, we'll rest 1 more night until nighttime, go to the spot and wait for the nightflower to spawn. Then we'll gather it and we got ourselves some nightflower pollen. And remember, the geologist skill is your friend. Anyway, now that we know how to make an Artian weapon and farm their parts, let's talk about the other detail about Artian weapons, reinforcing them. To reinforce an Artian weapon, we'll talk to Gemma once again, but this time select the Reinforce Dismantle Artian Weapon option. From here we'll have a list of all of our Artian weapons, so select the one you wish to reinforce here. Reinforcing an Artian weapon requires these ores that give a variable amount of points depending on rarity. Each reinforcement on a rarity 8 weapon requires 3,000 points and can be done up to 5 times. These reinforcements will give your weapon a somewhat random bonus: 5+ attack, 5+% to affinity, 30+ element, and 30+ sharpness. I've heard there's a defense boost too, but I've never personally seen it, so I think I was just lied to. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, this is somewhat random, and the reason for that is because if your weapon doesn't have an element, it cannot get the element boost. And if you're aiming for attack boosts, this makes each reinforcement a 1 in 3 chance to get an attack boost compared to the 1 in 4 chance if you had an element on your weapon. With that said, there is also the option to dismantle these weapons. So if you're really set on getting a god roll Artian weapon with an element and 5 attack bonus, or just want to try your luck getting some better bonuses, then dismantling will refund all of your ores spent, but it will not refund your parts. Those you will have to reacquire through farming. In an ideal world, you want the majority of your bonuses to be attack boosts. You might get the odd affinity boost, which isn't all that bad, as long as you aren't overcapping affinity past 100%, or the sharpness boost, which also isn't terrible, as long as you're not getting more than one. More than one and it's kind of just smelly. When level 3 decorations can have dual skills on them, one of those being handicraft that makes the sharpness boost even less desirable. Also, element boost, this affects status ailments too, and just like sharpness, you probably don't want more than one of these because attack is just going to do more overall. Just some things to look out for to help you identify if your bonuses aren't great. For example, if you got like 4 weapon sharpnesses and like 1 affinity boost, that's probably a pretty bad weapon. But here's a fun fact. Did you know your Artian bonuses are decided the moment you craft the weapon? Because of this, if you wanted to save scum, you could save before forging and reinforcing your weapon, and if the bonuses are kinda poopy, then return to title screen without saving, reload your character, and try again. I'm telling you this for educational purposes, because I trust you wouldn't do this, would you? To farm the reinforcement ore, it's a lot simpler than the parts. Every few days, Azus will hold their festival and will share some of the materials with you. You can get these directly in Azus from Rakal or from Nata. Also, if you want to spend points to get more of these ores, you can actually just wait for inclemencies by resting in Azus and claiming the materials every day that way. If you talk to Rakal, he has some additional services to smelt some armor spheres and ore, with the ore option the one we're focusing on. From here, we can select a few ores. Let's pick Orichalcite, and from here, you'll see we can turn monster parts into points. So if you have any excess monster parts you want to get rid of, and you really want to upgrade your Artian weapons and can't wait for the festival, then this is another method of acquiring more ore. And that is all there is to know about the Artian weapon system. Thanks for watching. And if you found this video helpful, do all the YouTube things. Thank you to my Patreons as always. There's more Monster Hunter content to come, but in the meantime, take it easy, and goodbye.